guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with my October wrap-up. So I read 12 books this month, and I was stuck on A Discovery of Witches for like a week and a half, and I'm still only almost 300 pages in. It's a 500-page book. It's taking me forever to read, and I feel like I would have read probably 2 more books if I weren't reading that book as well. So I'm in the middle of that. So I know that was my pick what I read next for October, but I have not gotten to it yet. I apologize. It will happen hopefully soon. Hopefully this weekend I'll finish it. But I have 12 books to share with you guys, and so I will go ahead and get to it. So the first one was kind of a letdown. So I saw this was new by this author, and the audiobook was on Scribd, and so I listened to Blind Kiss by Renee Carlino, and it did not end up being the romance I wanted it to be. It's about this girl and this guy, and it's basically like they meet in college at a experiment where they want to see if you can be like attracted to someone without seeing each other. So they have people do a blind kiss where they kiss each other, and she automatically becomes best friends with this guy and like doesn't want to date him, but like kind of does, but then they don't, and then things in life happen where they can never be together, and they're like in their 30s, and it flashes back between the past when they meet in college and the present in their 30s, and like all throughout their relationship together, and how they can never be together. And like there were so many plot devices that are used over and over again that were used in this book, and I was annoyed with the characters. It was pretty boring. Like nothing really happened that much in it, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was just an okay book. It was an audiobook, so I felt like it was moving really slow because like not a lot of things were happening, and it kept on flashing back between the past and the present in different years. Everything was out of order, so you really had to pay attention. But it wasn't really a romance. Like, I feel like it was never, I don't know. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Then I finally read The One by Kira Cass. This is book 3 in the Selection series, and this is pretty much the end of the original trilogy. They have 2 more about the daughter of America, and so this one, kind of like with the 3rd Shatter Me book, like there was like this big epic thing we were all looking for, and then like America wasn't really a part of it, and I didn't really like that. It was again very back and forth between if Max is gonna choose her or not, still back and forth, and like things happen where he's like, oh my gosh, and like there were like really shocking moments of like some people happening some things to them. I don't want to spoil anything, but some things happen to some people, and it was crazy, and I still really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think the ending could have been better. Like she wasn't just like not part of the big action going on, but I still enjoyed it, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Pretty solid series to me. The next book was kind of a disappointment too. I read this as an ebook, and that is Getaway Girl by Tessa Bailey. My friend Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers on Instagram loves Tessa Bailey, and so I was excited to read this because this came out last year around a Polycon when I got to meet Tessa Bailey there. Yeah, and this one's about a girl who like goes to the church that her cousin's getting married at, and her mom is like the black sheep of the family of the main character because her mom supposedly had an affair with her aunt's husband, and so like are she really like more related to her cousin kind of thing. And the groom ends up being stood up by her cousin, and so he hops in her car, the narrator's car, and like hides out with her, and she runs like a Christmas ornament craft business that her grandmother ran until her grandmother passed away, so she's in Georgia, I think, to run this, and the guy's actually the mayor or governor or some political office, and it's their romance. And I liked how they started out being friends, and they had a really cool friendship, and like they both felt more for each other but like didn't want to ruin the friendship they had going on, so it's definitely a friends to lovers romance, but not a lot happened. Like I feel like with romances right now, I feel like they just like sit around and do nothing. I wanted more to happen. I was kind of bored for a lot of it. It took me a while to get through, so I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was audiobook of Forever With You by Jennifer Lowell Armentrout. This is book 5 in this series. I am flying through these on audio. I've listened to all of them on audio now except for the book 1, which I read in paperback, but this one is Nick's story. Nick works at the bar that started in book 3, I believe, so 3, 4, and 5 are all about people who work at the bar, and this girl had come in at the end, I think, of book 4, and their stripper friend, who apparently can see the future, is psychic. She was like, that girl's going to break your heart, and Nick was like, whatever, he's never serious about girls, and he has a one-night stand with her, and then they keep on seeing each other, but Nick is like really distant, and she just got a job working at like the mixed martial arts place there in like their offices. This has that annoying trope that happened, if you remember, I don't know if it was last month, I read like a million books with the same trope, and this one had that too, and I'm just like, can we not please rely on that trope to get people to stay together? I was so annoyed. I think I give this a 3 out of 5 stars because like, I'm just so annoyed. I'm like, does that really have to happen? I was bored about that plot line and like super predictable about that plot line. And it was like really sad, something that happened, but like, I'm just like, I'm not in the mood for this. So it's kind of like the mood I was in and like the fact that I've been reading too much like this, but I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next few books I talked about in my Spookathon vlog, I'll go and link that down below, but the first book I read was The Wrong Game by Candy Steiner. This is Candy's new book, and it is a contemporary romance, and it's marketed as a sports romance, but he's not an athlete. And to me, a sports romance is like someone who's like a professional athlete or like in the high school athlete, whatever age range you're in. But this one centers around them going to football games together, so I don't know if I'd consider it a sports romance. I mean, it has to do with sports, but he's not a current athlete. But this one, I feel like I was too pressured to read. So I read it for review, and I had like 4 days to read it, which has been happening lately with a lot of authors. They've been giving bloggers like 4 days to read their book before they have to review it. And that's super stressful to me because I have to make time for it, especially if it's during like the school week. And I felt like I was pressured to read this really fast. It's about a girl who her husband, something happens with her relationship with her husband. That's all I'm going to say. And so now she is using her husband's season tickets to the Chicago Bears games to take a new date to each time to try to like get back in the dating world. And the bartender that she's at with her friend overhears, and he offers to be her trial run, and he's determined to go every time because he really likes her and wants to have a relationship with her. And Zach is the bartender. He's super sweet and adorable, and I really like their relationship, but it got kind of slow in the middle, and I felt like I was trying to rush through it to try to read it. And it was just a cute, fluffy romance. Like, that's just what it was. It was a cute romance. There's nothing, like, angsty, nothing special. It was just cute. So, I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I listened to the audio of Sadie by Courtney Summers. This one has been everywhere. You probably already know what this book is about. It's about a girl named Sadie, and it is flashing between her going after the person who killed her younger sister and a podcast following Sadie's footsteps because she has disappeared. And so that was like the present and then the past of Sadie. And everyone was raving about the audio, so I listened to it, and people are like, it's such a cool premise of like the podcast and like her. And I will say in the beginning, it was really slow because the podcast was just like literally restating everything we already knew Sadie was doing. The podcast didn't become interesting to me until the end, where it was like the part with Sadie left stuff out that the podcast discovered. We didn't learn anything new in the podcast until the end. So I was kind of bored by that. It was an okay read until the end when things got like really entertaining, and then the ending left me so unsatisfied, and I was a little annoyed by that. So I did give this a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a really good, interesting read. I read it pretty fast. Like, listening felt like it was going pretty fast, but I didn't think the podcast element was that interesting at the beginning, and I did not like the ending. The next book I read was Lover Revealed by J.R. Ward. This is book 4 in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. This is Butch's story, and Butch is a human cop, and he is in love with a girl that was supposed to be with a guy from book 1 that he didn't want anymore. So they've had this like dancing around each other relationship since book 1, and they're finally doing something about it. But crazy things happened. I don't want to spoil anything. These are vampire romances. They're amazing. I loved Butch's story so much. I feel like him and Zadis now are equal to me. I love them both equally. Like, this is one of my favorites of the series so far. Absolutely love Butch. I love his relationship with Vicious and how close they are, and I cannot wait to read Vicious's story next. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Folsom by Taryn Fisher and Willow Astor, and this is book 1 in the End of Men series, and this is about a dystopian world where men are dying off and no one can reproduce. And so there's, I think, 9 or 11 men left in the entire world who can have babies. Their sperm like works, and there's not that many men other than them who can't have babies. And so they have the end men whose job it is to go around the world and impregnate women. And so they have appointments, they're paid to impregnate women. And so it is custom for a woman to have an appointment with one of the end men to try to get pregnant and try to have a girl. And so he has impregnated almost 300 women. He's had 300 kids, and 2 of them have been boys. And so it's really interesting how the women are like, well, the men deserve this because of how they've treated us in the past kind of thing. And this really reminded me of Handmaid's Tale, but like role reversal, because they've like forced the men to have babies, and like the government ends up being super controlling. And this was so good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. He ends up falling for one of the women he has to impregnate, and Gwen works in a research lab to try to figure out why this is happening. And she is such a great character. I loved her. So entertaining. Ended on a cliffhanger and I was freaking out. So I can't wait for book 2, but I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So the next book I read was like the worst book I read this month. Probably almost all year. It's Until July by Aurora Rose Reynolds, and this is book 1 in this series, but I guess it's a spin-off of another series. And this is about July, and I listened to the audio, and there was a female narrator the whole time until the end, but I'm gonna explain that later. And she had the worst voice for the guy. She'd be like, July, is like how he said her name. And I was like, oh my god, this is so annoying. And she had like a really creepy voice for him, and how they met was ridiculous. Like, she's a vet, and she only went to work like twice in the beginning of the book and never went back to work. And she was like on her motorcycle, because she's all cool and rides a motorcycle, and almost ran into a bird in the middle of the road, so she swerves and almost runs into these group of motorcycle gang people, and they chase her down. He's super alpha male possessive and really annoying, and their whole relationship was so insta-lovey, and I just couldn't stand it. I almost didn't finish this, but I'm like, no, I have to. Maybe it's gonna get better. It did not. And I guess she writes a lot of alpha male romances, and I was just not here for it. And then like randomly halfway through, we had his perspective, which I don't get. Like, give me them equally, or just like go give me one of them. And it was like maybe 3 chapters from his perspective of the entire book. Like, what's the point? So I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. Really didn't like it. The next book I have a review for, so I'm not going to talk too long about it, and that is Restore Me by Tara Mafi. This is book 4 in the Shatter Me series, and I was a little conflicted on my feelings because like things happened and then not a lot happened, and bombs were dropped at the end, and I'm dying for book 5, so I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was like kind of satisfying, kind of not. I don't know how to articulate my feelings, but I have a whole spoilery review if you want to watch that. Link down below. Next, I'm not going to talk too much about, I've read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I teach this every year, and so I read it along with my kids every night, and like as in like I sign them chapters and then I read them while they are reading it for homework, and I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my favorite things to teach ever. Yeah, you guys should check it out. And the last book I read this month was Rewrite the Stars by Charlie Rose, and yes, I did sing the song every single time I was reading this throughout the day from The Greatest Showman. This is about a girl who she runs away from her parents as they get into an argument, and runs away to a carnival, and she runs into these motorcycle daredevils. I forget what they're called, but like they have a motorcycle show, and she runs, like spends the night like doing stuff with them. Like they go to an abandoned house, and flashback another year, she sees them again at a party at her high school, and her life has drastically changed from the year before because of something that happened that night. And then we flash forward another year, and it's her running off to the carnival because her home life is horrible. And it's her romance with Sebastian, who is one of the people who perform in the, I forget what they're called, but perform in that motorcycle show in the carnival. And he is on a trailer with his friends, not his friends, his family. They're like family members. They are cousins, and all the men in his family are cursed to die before they're 25. So each of them are very different, all of him and his cousins, because they have taken that curse differently. So one like lives life like it's his last day to the fullest. One is like super broody and like mean to everybody, and they agree they will never fall in love so that they don't have to continue this curse on in their family, because all of their dads are dead. They died before they were 25. And our main character is just trying to like last the summer before she has to figure out what she's gonna do, because it's the summer before she wanted to take a gap year in college. And it's their romance, and she is really into him. I mean, it's Charlie Rose, so there's lots of angst and lots of steamy parts in this book, but it's really good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I flew through this, couldn't put it down. It's one of my new favorites from her. You guys should check it out if you want like a fun, angsty carnival book. It's really good. And that is my October wrap up. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down below what you read and what you liked that I have read as well. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye.